8 p.m. Central African Time. Hello, Sonny Bonani. Welcome to the BrakeAway Racing League. Welcome to this ninth race of this All-Star season. It's great to have you alongside. Great to have you along here tonight. As you can see, a current contingent of 13 drivers and increasing. We will get a proper sense of just how many of these contenders will be in the fray by the time we get racing. It's a full house as far as Ferrari is concerned. Ditto Red Bull. Today we're joined by none other than Fense. My sources tell me this is Fense's season debut, so how about that? Great to have them along. Caboza is here as is usual, sage figure of speech, alongside their teammate in the Ferrari stable, that being Billy Hendricks. The Alpine duo of Tindo and Man Ray, the two veterans of the BrakeAway Racing League, also here represented. Donathan Laka is also here. Let's take a quick look at how things stand as far as the championship is concerned. The person in the pound seats as far as the championship is Mex, leading the standings with 134 points. Duke is second on 125 points. Sage Figure of Speech is third, 86 points for them. Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator, possibly Debo Cayman. They're currently fourth in the standings on 81 points. Loveness has 74 points. In fifth place, Caboza has 71 points. In sixth place, seventh is Donathan Laka on 66 points. Thiago Maestro is eighth in the standings, 52 points for them. Zotal is ninth on 51 points. Billy Hendricks is 10th, 38 points for them. Mfundo, 11th with 33 points. Fense, beg your pardon, that was, it's been a while since we've seen Fense, but by no means Fense's debut. Fense in the Red Bull has 22 championship points. Man Ray also tied there. And then we have Marshy in 14th on 15 points. And the 86er is currently 15th in the standings, just 6 points for them. And then Sir Lancelot and Inquali with 3 points each. Tindo has just the one championship point. So work to do for the veteran Tindo. But he is here at the start of this qualifying session. They will have 18 minutes to set the best possible times that they can. And we will then see how everyone fares as far as the battle for pole position is concerned. 14 total contenders. Welcome to this ninth race of the season. What a spectacle we had last time out in Las Vegas. It was, of course, Duke who came out victorious there. And what a showing that was by Duke. And we will then now get a sense of whether or not they can back it up around here, around the Lusail International Circuit. The Haas duo of Marshy and Zotal are out. It was not such a great day for them. Had a bit of a coming together, which of course sadly impacted both their race prospects. So they will hope possibly to help one another as far as the race itself is concerned, but definitely will not want to have anything to do with making contact with one another. 16 and a half minutes of this session to go. Billy Hendricks joins the Haas duo alongside Caboza and Man Ray as the first out onto the track. Welcome to the Lusail International Circuit, folks. It's a 5.4 kilometer circuit. Was designed with motorcycle racing in mind. It is, of course, a track famous for its fast and medium speed corners. And as you can see, it is not exactly a straightforward track, despite the fact that that main straight is more than 1 kilometer long. So definitely a lot to look forward to there. Caboza wasted no time coming out onto the circuit. Currently sixth in the standings is Caboza with a total of 71 points. As Sir Lancelot asks, where is Nquali? Well, time will tell. We'll see whether or not Nquali can make their presence felt in this here lobby. This is Caboza now into the first corner of the circuit, trying to carry as much speed as possible. That slow-moving car makes way for Caboza, hopefully in time for his lap not to be compromised at all. Rides the curves as Caboza. Happy now is going to come into the braking zones for turns number 4 and 5. The upcoming left-hander is one of the heaviest braking zones of this circuit. Qaboza slams the brakes after the 50-meter mark. 30.694 is that split at the end of the first sector. Qaboza representing the B carbs alongside Superstar Mex. What can they do here? Fourth gear through that right-hander. Happy to ride the curb. Of course, on this track, you have to do as much as you possibly can to maintain as much speed as you possibly can through those medium and high-speed corners. Qaboza happy, of course, to make acquaintance with the curves, and he now looks to complete the middle sector with a split of 53.311. Qaboza flat out. Qaboza will be the first to lay down the gauntlet. Seventh gear, flat out, leaving nothing to chance here. This is going to be the early marker. Qaboza really on the limit, giving it his all over here. 14 and a half minutes of the session to go. He straightens out, and it's pedal to the metal for Qaboza. It's a 122.693. How about that? Here come the Hasses. Look at that. Zotal pips Qaboza. 22.335. Billy Hendricks for Ferrari goes top with a 22.152 as those times start to trickle in, as I believe now the duo of Tindo and their teammate are about to get started. Where is Mex? Man rate has crossed the line for a 23.157. Marshy is fifth fastest with that 23.744. Who was that on the verge of coming towards the line? It's not quite Donathan Laka. Nope, the Red Bull is on an outlap. So Lancelot says, hey, my teammate is here. Happy to see them represented, of course, at this current juncture. Let's get a sense of how one of the Red Bulls is doing. That was Fensei, who was crossed the line, the seventh quickest, 23.881, and Donathan Laka finishes their push lap, puts them in sixth place. The Aston Martin, one of the Aston Martins, that being Enfundo, has just begun their push lap. Let's see how they will fare. Perhaps since Enfundo is just the starter, we'll hop on over to one of the championship contenders. Sector 1 split of 33.038. We'll stay on board with Duke to see how they will fare now. It was fairly comfortable out in Vegas. It was close in qualifying between Duke and Next in Vegas. Will that be the case here in Qatar? He's happy to get acquainted with all of the track limits, now looking to complete the middle sector. What'll it be for the McLaren? The answer, possibly, is not quite, giving it an almighty push as Mex sets the quickest time of the day, a 22.101. It is oh so close between all of these contenders as more and more drivers slip into the lobby and take their place to be able to compete in this race. Tindo is was not on a representative lap first time out. Nope, it does not look like Tindo is giving it a proper go. So we'll hop back on with Enfundo, who we were watching earlier. What can he do? 23.058. Good enough for the fifth quickest time of the day. Tindo has yet to set a time, as, of course, as the likes of Inquali, the 86er, and Sage Figure of Speech. We know that Sage Fig has got pace. How much more in the bank is that, as Qaboza has found a couple of tenths worth of improvements here on what looks to be their second push lap. What'll it be for Qaboza this time out? He was fourth, still hangs on to that P4 spot, but does find an improvement, 22.384 for Qaboza. Now, Inquali is out on circuit. Of course, their teammate was asking, where is my teammate? Where is my teammate? Well, Inquali says, I'm here now, looking to complete the first sector. And that split will be a 31.4. Oof. Gets it slightly wrong there into the very, very slow turn number 6. Sadly, Marshy dipping in and out of the lobby. Hopefully they can resolve their issues and get back in contention. We're on board with Marshy here. What can they do? Hacking away at the steering wheel, trying to keep this lap valid and going, and possibly, hopefully, competitive. So it's Mex from Billy Hendricks from Zotal. Those are your top three currently. Qaboza fourth, Enfundo fifth. Man Ray in sixth place. Debo Crocodile is seventh. The Nucho eighth. Donathan Laka ninth. Marshy rounding off your top 10. Tiago is in the comment section. Tiago is in the cockpit. Tiago is possibly in contention. This, however, is in quali, who crosses the line for the 12th quickest time, essentially. Slowest of a lot. Work to do for in quali. In the rest of quali, so let's see how they do. Now, we hop on over to Sage Figure of Speech, Ferrari superstar, whose teammate is in the top 2. Can Sage Figure of Speech match that? We took a wide line into the entry of this first corner, trying to line it up as best as they possibly can. Can it be a red-hot quali lap from Sage Figure of Speech? Now, looking to complete the first sector, 6th gear through turns 4 and 5, now into the braking zone, heavy braking zone of turn number 6, 30.388. That slow-moving car better get out the way. Sage Figure of Speech will not be best pleased with that, but the car is out the way. It is now up to him to see how much more he can put on here as he looks to set the timing tower on fire. Sage Figure of Speech is giving it an almighty push. Zotal is also doing exactly the same further back. 57.497 is definitely among the quicker Sector 2 splits that we've seen thus far. Sage Figure of Speech looking to give their teammate a lot of headaches, looking to give Zotal something to think about. Perhaps next, if this third and final sector comes together cleanly. Less than 9 minutes of this session to go as we get this beautiful overhead view of this scorching hot Scarlet Red Ferrari. It's Sage Figure of Speech across the line. It's a 21.854. How about that from Sage Figure of Speech? Where is Zotal? The answer is he's found almost half a second worth of improvement, but will it be enough to give Sage Figure of Speech something to think about? The Ferrari superstar waited an age to come out. Here comes Zotal's answer, and it is second quickest, 22.049 from the veteran Zotal. Beautifully done with 8 minutes of the session to go. But take a bow, Sage Figure of Speech. Sensationally done with 8 minutes of this session to go. Duke is looking to give a Sage Figure of Speech an answer. A middle sector split also in the 57 seconds. This will be nothing to be scoffed at by the superstar McLaren driver, who brings it across the line for a 21.292. Duke lights up the timing towers once again. How about that? Here comes their teammate now. Also with a middle sector split in the 57 seconds, there's a slower moving Ferrari in front of them. Hopefully not compromising Tiago too much. They duck out of the way, but will Tiago do something special across the line? It's a McLaren front row lockout. Provisionally with 7.5 minutes of the session to go. Beautifully done by both the Papaya cars, 1 and 2. Both cars making it a 3-driver contingent in the 1 minute 21s. Sensationally done by Tiago and, of course, Duke. Sensational stuff. Now, what about the 86er? Whose middle sector was definitely slow by the standards that we've seen today. 86er goes very wide with that final corner, and they're compromised. This is Tato Loveness, who really looks to be fighting the rear of the car through that corner that we caught up with them at. Let's hop on board now to get that vantage point. It's Tato giving it an almighty push now, looking to complete the middle sector. Third gear through the left-hander. It looks to be a glitchy POV as far as Tato is concerned. 6.5 minutes set for Tato to show us what they're made of. 57.803 in the middle sector. Another quick effort from Tato, a.k.a. Loveness, whose POV, from our vantage point, seems to be a little bit glitchy, but I'll tell you what, it's a valid lap. It's a fast lap. It seemingly is going to be a very competitive lap if he can keep it together through these final couple of corners. Here comes Tato. Here comes Loveness. What'll it be? The answer is P7, 22.282. Kid K says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Put a brake on those McLaren. Ban the McLarens. Tato, currently 7th quickest, as the 86er looks to make his way around to put on a lap. Tindo had also sadly invalidated on their first proper push lap attempt. So this will be another bite at the cherry for Tindo. We're going to go and hop on over to another driver who's a little bit further along in their quality effort. It's Mfundo, who seemingly has found about a 1/10 of a second relative to their best lap. In front of Mfundo seems to be one of the Hasses. I think it's Marshy in front of Mfundo. Also on a push lap. So we'll see how these two will do. Running line astern are Marshy and Mfundo. We'll get a sense of just how well Marshy can improve. And Fundo, as the front row seats to Marshy's attempts, trying to now stay in touch. Yeah, Marshy really galloping way further ahead. I do wonder, as Infundo perhaps, does not look to be a competitive push lap from Infundo. Ditto Marshy, seemingly. So both these cars we're trying to catch up with and see just how they're doing. Not quite giving it a push. Billy Hendricks, meanwhile, has just come across the line for another bite at the cherry. 4.5 minutes of the session to go. Ferraris in fighting form, in competitive form, in a competitive move here tonight. As, of course, is the duo of McLaren superstars. Can they confirm that front row lockout at the end of this qualifying session? Time will tell. Billy Hendricks finds more than 0.2 of a second at the end of that first sector. Now looking to keep it clean through this tricky middle sector, which has a range of different corners, starting, of course, with that super slow turn 6, and now is dotted or littered with all these medium and high-speed corners. Billy Hendricks now on the verge. Completing that middle sector. 0.2 worth of improvement come the end of that middle sector. It'll seemingly take him in a position where he could possibly leapfrog Zotal at this rate if he manages to keep it clean and keep it together now through this final sector. It's Billy Hendricks looking to leapfrog Zotal. It's Billy Hendricks into the top 3, leapfrogging both their teammates and, of course, their teammate and Zotal there. Mex, sadly invalidated. He's going to have to go all the way around and give it another go. Somewhere in South Africa, Mex is being cheered on by Nintendo Wii. Nkwali is on another push lap attempt, the 86er. Ditto also doing the same, but sadly down. 86er sadly invalidates over there. So work to do for the veteran Mercedes driver. How's the Nucho doing? The answer, sadly, is slower. Down is the Nucho by more than 0.2 of a second. So let's hop on over instead to Capoza, who's just began their push lap now, as Mex, their teammate, is on the verge of giving it another go. Capoza was the first out on track, and Capoza rides too much of the curve there and has to fight to catch the car. Capoza, heart-in-mouth moment there, and, thankfully for him, managed to catch the car before things got too tragic. Come on, Nkwali, says Sir Lancelot in the comment section. Cheering on their teammate there. 18 drivers represented here, competing for the top honors. Just 2 minutes of this session to go as we now watch Donathan Laka become one of the final few drivers. One of the drivers to give this a final go. A little bit wide on the exit of that previous corner. Now trying to make up for it by riding the curb, and they're really taking advantage of all the limits of the track that they possibly can. The McLaren duo has yet to come out. We're going to hop on over to stage figure of speech to see how they're faring in a second or two. Man Ray is on a push lap. Loveness is on a push lap. Capoza was on that push lap but had to abandon, of course, as we saw just a couple of minutes ago. Donathan Laka for the pride of Williams, now making the way towards the line. The final corner, was close to the limit there. Donathan Laka was 14th, now jumps up to P10 in the qualification stakes. Stage figure of speech down on their previous quality time, so work to do for stage figure of speech. Don Radico, former champion of the top tier in the BrakeAway Racing League, is in the comment section. Who remembers those sensational battles between Don Radico and Caesar on this track some seasons ago. Here comes stage figure of speech towards the line, and sadly could not find some improvement. Still P5 there for stage figure of speech. Work to do. Let's see now how some of the other top competitors are faring. Zotal has begun their push lap attempt The rest of these drivers are scrambling to make it across the line to be able to see what they can do. Zotal down on their best lap. He's down by 0.2 of a second. Work to do for the Haas superstar. Currently 7th, their teammate mired in P15. As the clock runs out and Billy Hendricks and Mex take the checkered flag. So now it's countdown. And it's going to be a huge test of nerves as Zotal ekes out a little bit of a slipstream by a slow-moving car, which needs to get out the way. If you're not giving it a push back, get out the way! What is going on? A slow-moving Mercedes completely compromises Zotal, who now sends it careening into the wall. And he will be seething that car did not move out of the way. What is going on? A slow-moving Mercedes as Debo Crocodile is behind some of the other runners that we're watching. Zotal is going to be marching straight to the steward's office. It seems that Thiago is behind their teammate, Duke, who, despite having provisional pole position, is now in the prime seats to to raise the bar even further. It's Duke towards the line. It was 21.2. It is 21.1 for Duke. And one of the Ferraris is on the verge of crossing the line. No, Citric Speech did not make it to the line. Thiago Maestro also finding a little bit of improvement over there. It seems like the front row lockout is in prospect. And there we go. Thiago invalidated, sadly. Where is Tindo? Also another invalidation. Debo Crocodile comes across the line for the 12th quickest time of the day. And it is pole position for Duke. And Thiago makes it a front row lockout. How about that? Duke from Thiago in the front row in Qatar. Beautifully done by Team McLaren with the quickest car of the day, of the night. How about that? Billy Hendricks will start the race on that second row alongside Mex, who would have wanted to improve but sadly could not find those margins. P4 for the championship leading Mex. Six figure of speech will start in that third row. P5 alongside Loveness. Zotal will be absolutely seething at that slower moving Mercedes. I'm not sure which one it was. They will start in P7 and they will be alongside, of course, Caboza. Who also would have wanted to fight much harder to be a little bit higher. P8 for Caboza, 9th for Mfendo. Manray will start in that 10th spot. Donovan Laka will start this race in 11th. Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator, possibly Debo Cayman, P12. Marshy, P13. The Nucho, a.k.a. Peace, will start this race in 14th place. Rest of the runners. Fence 360, P15 for them. Tindo will start this race in 16th place. In Quali, who is being cheered on from the high heavens by Sir Lancelot, currently 17th, the Kick Saber Superstar. The 86er, work to do for them. 3 sets of tires for the 86er, P18. How about that, folks? Thank you for joining us. The race in Qatar is coming up next. It's a front row lockout for Team McLaren. What will the race have in store? It's an unforgiving track if you're too liberal with riding the curbs, and if you're too greedy in terms of overtaking prospects around this Lusail International Circuit. So I do wonder what sort of drama we will see. As you mentioned, it's a long run from turn 16, the final corner, down towards that braking zone of turn number 1. It's a major opportunity to overtake. And, of course, some of the braver drivers use some of the medium and high-speed corners to effect possible overtaking positions. So it is one of the circuits which tends to serve up its fair share of drama as far as sim racing is concerned. And I'll tell you what, if we do get a little bit of that and perhaps some unexpected podium finishers, what a race that would be in prospect. It's the 9th race of this All-Star season. Welcome to Qatar, the Lusail International Circuit. It's Duke and Thiago Maestro with the McLaren front row lockout. The main race up next. Here we are, it's 4 lights, it's 5 lights, it's the only time South Africans look forward to the lights going out, and here comes Duke to give us a taste of just exactly what he can do. Oh no, one of the McLarens has gone off, it's Thiago Maestro in the wall, and now it's up to Duke to fight it out, and it's a virtual safety car which nullifies racing, and how on earth did that happen? The McLaren just went careening into the wall, perhaps some Unlucky contact. The biggest beneficiary of that huge moment. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Thiago Maestro into the wall before we got to the first corner. It is Duke from Mex under the virtual safety car. Billy Hendricks hangs on to P3, now running alongside Stitch Figure of Speech under the virtual safety car as we look to get the remnants of whatever is remaining of Thiago's front wing. It was straight into the wall there. A nightmare starts after a front row lockout, and now it is going to have to be a fight back of the ages for the McLaren driver. While taking advantage of that chaos, Marshy down at P9, gaining 4 positions. Everybody else taking advantage of Thiago's mishap and gaining 1 place. The Nuccio also among the big movers, but a couple of early penalties as the virtual safety car has been called now on this first lap, and the virtual safety car is over, which means that we will be getting racing right now. It's a full complement of medium tires with the exception of Jonathan Lacka and Fence as we go racing at the Lusail International Circuit. McLaren versus RB versus Ferrari in those top positions. They're all running line astern now as Duke leads them through that first corner. Carnage on the first lap as we seem to have Jonathan Lacka also coming into the pits very, very early there. On board we go with Loveness, who has the front row seats to the battle for the top 5 positions. Behind Loveness is a little bit of gap, 1.2 seconds to Zotal. And looks like the second Ferrari in front of Loveness. Stage Figure of Speech losing a bit of ground now to the braking zone. Will anyone be able to take a little bit of an advantage? That turn 6 can be treacherous if you outbrake yourself there and just miss your mark as far as that braking point is concerned. But that top 5 running in formation. Duke driving with razor sharp focus, trying not to lose ground behind these guys. Seems like Kapoza and Zotal having an almighty tussle. Zotal, whose qualifying prospects were scuppered at the death towards the end of quali, now looking to keep that RP in the hands of Kapoza at bay. Kapoza was looking to take a bite out of the back of that half, but Zotal giving nothing away. Romeo Mandla Massenbo in the comment section. Good to see you over here. Good to see everybody making their presence felt in this comment section. Kapoza trying to give Zotal a lot to think about. Look how close the top 5 is running. Very, very close as Kapoza looks to have a say versus Zotal down the main straight, and Kapoza gets the cleanest of overtakes, now up to P6, looking to bridge that gap to Loveness, currently 2.3 seconds. Meanwhile, in the top 5, it is still unchanged. Oh, I beg your pardon. Mex managed to overtake Duke and go into the lead of this race at the beginning of lap number 3, but Duke, of course, is a master at playing the long game, a master at biding their time as all into that slower braking point. Duke almost makes a little bit of contact there, hopefully no wing damage. Duke into the back of Mex over there. It is very, very close. And of course, Duke has to keep the Ferrari duo of Stage Figure of Speech, who we go on board with now, and their teammate, Billy Hendricks, as Manry gets a 3-second time penalty early on for track limit violations. Well. Mex versus Duke, less than 0.4 of a second between the top 2 superstars. And Loveness is really looking to break apart these Ferraris. He wants to be an Aston Martin meat in the middle of a Ferrari sandwich. But Billy Hendricks and Six Figure of Speech are not going to make his life easy at all. Now, on to the main straight, where it all pops off, where it all happens here if you do not have your guard up. There goes Mex now into the race lead once again, reclaiming that P1 spot as Debo Crocodile is the latest to fall foul of track limits incursions a little bit further back. Still, running in formation are the top 5. And Tapiso saying, why didn't you guys tell me that real racing is back? Let's hop on board now with Kapoza versus Zotal. A beautiful series of battles these two have served on for season upon season. But Zotal looks to position that car right in the middle to make Kapoza go the long way around. But the RB superstars goes bide their time now and make sure that Zotal is forced into some sort of mistake. It's Kapoza who is much more confident now through this corner. Side by side they go. And Zotal seems to have to concede and lose that P5 P6 spot, which turns to P7. Zotal slowly inching further and further down the order. Now, Zotal has to fight off the specter of Infundo, who is struggling to keep Marshy at bay in this fourth lap of a total 29. Welcome to the 9th race of the season. Welcome to the BrakeAway Racing League. It's all-star settings. It is all-star stuff, as the all-stars, that being Qaboza and Zotal, are serving up quite a feast here in towards the beginning of possibly the 5th lap. Back towards the bottle for the top of 5 now. These three you're watching is the Ferrari duo, Billy Hendrick's figure of speech, as the lead swaps again. Mex and Duke are just happy to pass the baton of leadership, of race leadership, between one another. Back on board with Love As We Go. Front row seat to this top 5 shootout. And I'll tell you what, they've done really well, have these top 5. Created a 4.5 second buffer between themselves and Zotal, who is still fighting Qaboza. I'll tell you what, it seems that through the traction zones, these medium high speed corners, Qaboza seems to be much more comfortable, gives Zotal all of the headaches, and then of course Zotal stays close enough to be able to just reclaim their position relative to Qaboza when these two fight it out down that main straight. So will that be the case once again? We'll keep a close eye on them. Meanwhile, Infundo and Marshy have inched closer and closer to this to make it a 4-way fight between the Haas, the RB, and of course Team Aston Martin. Qaboza leaving nothing to chance versus Zotal. Nuccio, latest in a string of drivers that have been penalized for track limit incursions. Now, down the main straight we go. Let's see whether or not Qaboza can do what Zotal did and reclaim that spot. Yep. To the inside he goes, and up to P6. And down to the lower midfield, Fensei is trying to keep the 86er at bay. It's a recovery drive by the veteran 86er, started all the way at the back of the pack, currently running in 12th. So a safety car will definitely be welcomed by the Mercedes superstar, who is now looking to go on the outside of the 86er, leaving to the left and to the right. Riding the curves, looks very comfortable, does the 86er in race trim. Perhaps was using the quali to get a feel for this track, but definitely looks to be the faster of these two. Fensei 360 will not make life easier for the 86er. Galilatang, Kagawaiti almost making contact with the back of the Red Bull. Leaving nothing to chance. Behind them, of course, by some distance is Debo Crocodile, Fensei's teammate. The 86er, again, comfortable. The 86er almost side by side. The 86er not quite close enough to get that move done. And Fensei shuts the door as they now come through these faster sequences of corners. But the main street is coming up. A golden opportunity for Galilatang, because away to the 86er to stake their claim on that P11 spot. And the 86er fighting tooth and nail to find their way into the points reckoning. The time penalty will not help, but well, as far as the pure race pace is concerned, he's just going to look to get it done down this main straight. Had saved up so much battery power on the inside. Goes the 86er now into that P11 spot. He's got a lot of time to bridge between themselves and their teammate Danuccio, who was about 5 seconds down the road. But as I say that, Fensei, who had been using up their battery to try stay ahead of the 86er, now looking to give the Mercedes driver headaches of their own. Red light flashes on the back of the 86er's car, trying to harvest a little bit of power. And Fensei looking to make life a little bit more difficult for the 86er. Seem to be quite similar as far as pace is concerned. So let's see how they fare as this race unfolds. Back to the front we go. The top two, Mex and Duke, have eked out a buffer of about 1.7 seconds between themselves and the chasing Sidge figure of speech. As I say that, it inches closer and closer to the 2-second mark. Seem to be equally matched for pace, and there goes the baton for the lead of this race. now into the hands of Mex. Stage figure of speech has done well to create some breathing room between themselves and the onrushing Loveness, who has the specter of Billy Hendricks. Remember, a couple of laps ago, we were saying that Loveness just wanted to get himself in between these Ferraris so as to make life not so straightforward for the Maranello-based outfit. Well, it's job done for Loveness. Now needs to make sure that the 3.5 second gap is slashed ever so gradually. Work to do for them. Capoza is now in the fight of their life versus Mfundo. Remember, it was Capoza versus Zotal. Now Mfundo has said, you know what, I'll get involved here and I'll just scooch in between you guys. Mfundo doing really, really well here tonight. Feeling quite racy is the Aston Martin superstar. Was managed a total of 33 points, that being Mfundo. So this will go some way towards their championship prospects. Capoza, with that time penalty, will hope that Mfundo, the likes of Mfundo and Zotal, could also get nailed for track limit violations. But work to do if Capoza will be able to say that towards the end of the day. Marshy, struggling to stay in touch, is behind Capoza about 1.5 seconds. Capoza on the inside of Mfundo, down towards turn 1, and it's P7 reclaimed there. And as he does that, he manages to get within 1 second of Zotal, who himself is looking to overtake the Ferrari. So Billy Hendricks started off really well here. Took advantage, did Billy Hendricks, of that early carnage, and of course did also sensationally during qualifying. Work to do now to keep veteran Zotal at bay. This is the vantage point from the man who has had a run of rotten luck in terms of incidents, both in quali. Hopefully will not have a coming together, Zotal, as was the case last time out in Las Vegas. Running 6th. About 8.2 seconds behind the leader of this race. Tapiso says, I will be back as soon as the F125 game is released. I'll tell you what, it'll be great to see Tapiso. Some of the more longer-term viewers of the BrakeAway Racing League might remember Tapiso, one of the veterans of the first iteration of Tier 2. As Billy Hendricks did a feint, almost daring Zotal to go into the pits, but not quite. Side by side goes Zotal. Billy Hendricks trying to use that straight line speed into turn 1, but not quite enough to challenge Zotal. It's Billy Hendricks fighting back now into turn 2 and 3. They go side by side. It's beautifully done by these two. It's very respectful. And Billy Hendricks says, you shall not pass. Beautifully done by the Ferrari superstar. But as these two fight, remember, inching closer and closer is Mfundo and Capoza. Billy Hendricks sacrificed a track limit violation there. 3-second time penalty in that fight versus Zotal. It was beautifully done going side by side there with Zotal, but costing them a precious margin there. So now Billy will hope that Zotal will also fall foul. But Zotal being Zotal, he will just hope to keep those mistakes to a minimum. It was beautifully done between the Haas and the Ferrari of Billy Hendricks. Capoza versus Mfundo. They are looking to inch closer and closer to the back of that duo that we've just watched battle. Mfundo is the picture of calm, the picture of composure today. 11 laps elapsed on this also-fast circuit. One of the cars goes into the pits. It's Zotal who calls time on these medium compound tires. And here comes Capoza now, right on the tail of the Aston Martin. Mfundo looking to line it up down towards turn number 1. Capoza was close, but no cigar as far as that overtake is concerned. Manray, another of the drivers to get penalized here for track limit violations. Zotal comes out on those hard tires. We'll hope, of course, not to have too much traffic to contend with. It is in Quali and Man Ray who are now making their way behind Zotal. So Zotal has at least some clean air to be able to try and fight their way back up in towards the reckoning for a decent points haul. Back to this battle we go. Qaboza and Fundo. Now, the pit lane time loss around this circuit is around 18.9 seconds. That is the average time that you lose in the pit lane. So, Zotal has rolled that dice. Now going to take their tires towards the end. Let's see how this pit window pits, essentially, these drivers against one another. Or there's a slow-moving car in the pit lane. It's Tindo, who has just retired from this session. The first casualty of this race. Tindo not having the greatest of seasons as we look at Qaboza looking finally to go side by side and effect that overtake. Now up to P5 as Billy Hendricks also calls time on their medium compound tires. Now in this 12th lap, we'll look to come out without too much traffic. We'll look to come out hopefully ahead of Zotal. Can that be done? It's Billy Hendricks who now crosses and releases that pit limiter. Zotal will be close, but not quite close enough to be able to get that done. So Billy Hendricks with the bigger smile, but it is a very, very cold set of hard compound tires on the exit. It is Billy Hendricks' outlap versus Zotal's very warm, hard tires at this point. Here we go now. It's a battle of wits for the Ferrari driver who's going to look to try and keep the Haas driver of Zotal at bay. Marshy, the latest of drivers to get penalized as we watch Zotal fight for their life versus Billy Hendricks, whose tires with each and every fast corner are getting closer and closer to their optimum temperatures, their optimum window as far as their grip levels are concerned. 13 laps elapsed. None of the top drivers coming in. As I say that, it's Sid's figure of speech and Loveness who are coming into the pits. So Zotal tries, he might not quite close enough to get that move done. Where will Loveness and Sid's figure of speech come out relative to these other competitors? They're going to hope that the likes of Zotal and Billy Hendricks do not get anywhere near. Yep, here comes Sid Fig and the Haas, as it looks like Debo Crocodile manages to overcome the 86er in that same shot. Yep, they're out ahead of Zotal, who has finally, down that main straight, overtaken Billy Hendricks. But the Ferrari, as you can see, is not looking to let Zotal get away with that. Well, Fence is now on the back of the 86er. It's a three-way fight. Oh, Fence had to fight to keep control of that car. Fence versus the 86er versus Debo Crocodile in that midfield. Of course, these drivers have not pitted. They're the last of the starters. Oh, would you look at that? Fence overcoming the 86er. Beautifully done there. The 86er now struggling for all of that grip. Qaboza, will they also call it as the two race leaders finally call time on their sets of tires? And as they come into the pits, Wazmex, who was marginally ahead of Duke, still is the case. Qaboza in the pits makes it a double stack for the RBs. And as these two are making their way, of course, they pushed their tires really to the limits. The chasing Red Bulls, which had yet to stop, that was Debo Crocodile, now comes right behind the leaders of this race. Marshy keeps track position and is the new leader of this race. 14 laps gone. So an alternate strategy, if we've ever seen one here. The 86er further down and in quali now finally coming into the pit. So the field is quite spread out here, folks, as you can see. With us pretty much approaching the halfway point of this race. Marshy is ahead of the net race leaders, that being Mex and Duke. And these two are really just going to try and, of course, resume their fight between one another. But it looks like Mex has done well on this outlap. It's created a buffer of more than a second, but Duke being Duke is not letting him get away at all. It was 1.2 seconds, but with each and every pass and corner, Duke inches closer and closer to re-establishing that advantage and regaining DRS advantage. Meanwhile, behind them, Loveness versus Fensei, who's on those old tires, is Fensei. Loveness overtakes that Red Bull over there. And Duke is now within touching distance, at least less than a second behind the McLaren, or I beg your pardon, behind the RB in the hands of Mex. Fensei versus Loveness, old versus new tires, not much of a battle there. Meanwhile, Billy Hendricks and Zotau have resumed proceedings. Of course, Zotau has held their nerve as far as making sure that they do not fall foul of that 3-second time penalty. So he will just really just bide their time. Zotau knowing that Billy is on that penalty. And Zotau at this point we were hoping that Billy falls foul of those penalties again. Currently 3 seconds for each of Marshy, Billy Hendricks, Loveness, Capoza, Debo Crocodile, Thiago, and yeah, that is pretty much that. 6 seconds of penalties for the Nucho and the 86er, and Man Ray has 9 seconds worth of time penalties. That is how things look with 16 laps elapsed in this showcase. The fastest driver on track is Loveness, who has set a 1 minute 24.404 for that benchmark. As Billy Hendricks tries to go offline, tries to break the toe and the slipstream that Zotau managed to eke out. So the experience of Zotau, he's quite content to stay within touching distance, knowing that the pressure in terms of not falling foul of track limit incursions, the pressure falls on their competitor. Back on board we go. Loveness versus Six Figure of Speech. This has been a beautiful battle to contend with pretty much throughout the proceedings here tonight. The midfield is really served up by some sensational battles. Semi-glitchy POV from Loveness's perspective. But I'll tell you what, the only thing they will care about is that gap. Less than half a second on the back of Sage Figure of Speech. We've had our pit windows. Now it is a battle of wits. As Sage Figure of Speech looks to have their say here versus Loveness. Marshy finally called time with the race leaders having caught up to them. Marshy is in the pits. Meanwhile, Loveness on the inside before turn number 1. It is P3 provisionally. Those time penalties will really cost Loveness dearly come the end of this race. So Loveness is another one who's going to be hoping that their immediate competitor, Sage Figure of Speech, also falls foul of track limit violation. I'll tell you what, folks. It's been a heck of a season from Sage Figure of Speech. Absolutely sensationally done. A couple of podiums already. Finished second in Australia, finished second in Spain, and really has been really consistent as far as their qualifying is concerned. 86 total points since the start of the season for Sage Figure of Speech. Really sensationally done by the Ferrari superstar. Currently third in the standings. Behind Sage Figure of Speech in the standings is Debo Crocodile, who today, sadly, finds themselves all the way down in P10 with that time penalty to contend with. Here comes Sage Figure of Speech in towards turn number 1. Oh, they're both going to give it a huge fight. It looks like the Aston Martin of Loveness tried to give some room, but Sage Figure of Speech was really going for it there. Now almost side by side through these slaloming fast corners. Now into turns number 4 and 5. On board we go. This is for Loveness, leaving nothing to chance. Sage Figure of Speech trying to apply the pressure now into the slower braking point of turn number 6, the left-hander. Loveness keeping the Ferrari at bay. Making Sage Figure of Speech go the long way around. Loveness riding almost too much of the curve there through some of those faster corners. Sage Figure of Speech much later on the brakes. And Loveness somehow, despite that, still managing to get decent exits. Here they come now into the left-hander of 15. And Sage Figure of Speech has driven a clean race, no penalties. And here now within touching distance. And golden opportunity takes the outside line in towards turn number 1. Loveness not leaving anything to chance, but he could not do anything about that. Finally overcome, but how hard will Loveness fight now? Lap 19 of 29. They're evenly matched as far as pace is concerned. And these two might just serve up a similar fare of exchanging positions as we've seen the likes of Duke and Mex do, as well as Qatar and some of their competitors a little bit further down the path. Tato, Loveness showing their experience as Qatar racks up another time penalty, which of course is sensational news for Zotal. But as I say that, Qatar had fallen some way behind Zotal in that midfield pack. Thiago Maestro, a case of really what could have been here tonight, was a front row lockout for McLaren's, but that huge moment which brought out the virtual safety car, sending Thiago straight into the wall before we even got to the first turn of this race. Now languishing down in P14 with a couple of time penalties to boot. So it's an uphill climb as far as any points prospects are concerned. Thiago will need a miracle and a safety car if they are somehow to make their way back into the reckoning for this race. Mercedes duo in front of Thiago, trying now to dispatch of the Nuccio. Easier said than done. Oh, but as I say that, now into through the penultimate corner, Nuccio almost losing it there. Thiago definitely close enough to sandwich themselves in between this Mercedes duo. Oh, the Nuccio dives down offline towards the right-hand side of the track, trying to break that slipstream, tries he might. Oh, later on the brakes was the Nuccio, or I beg your pardon, Thiago, who now goes up to P13. Now, meanwhile, at the front, it's been a procession as far as Mex and Duke is concerned. So this fight for the race win will definitely heat up towards the end, but sadly for Mex, that time penalty will cost them dearly. As these two are wont to do, once again, swapping the lead. They're content to pass the baton from the one driver to the other. This time, the race lead in the hands of Duke. So, if we see a 3-second time penalty from Duke, that'll make things definitely interesting. Back we go. Sage Figure of Speech, Loveness. Evenly matched as far as their pace is concerned. The 86er, once again, sadly penalized. Down in P12. Zotal running behind Billy Hendricks now, trying to keep things as clean as possible, trying not to get into any sort of trouble as far as those time penalties are concerned. The time penalty shootout. here in Qatar. Zotail still running in 6th place. Still within a second of Billy Hendricks. Those 51 championship points, Zotail is currently in 9th place in the standings. And these two running line astern are also running in a similar fashion in the championship standings. Currently, Piece 5 and 6, Billy Hendricks and Zotail. Billy Hendricks is behind Zotail in the championship standings. Billy Hendricks has racked up 38 total points. Billy Hendricks is 10th, of course, in the championship standings, and Zotail is 9th. And these two, line astern, Zotail on the dirty part of the track. A late move towards the outside into turn number 1. Will they make a little bit of contact? They're trying to give it a little bit of room. Billy Hendricks not giving this up. Zotail on the inside through this slower left-hander. Oh, and Billy Hendricks says, "You shall not pass." And Zotail has to bide their time again. The harder they fight, of course, the higher the chances of falling foul of those time penalties. Zotail, Billy Hendricks, fairly evenly matched as far as pace is concerned, so those mistakes costing Billy dearly. And when all is said and done, that will be the telling factor in terms of those finishing positions. Time penalty for Infundo, the latest to be penalized around this unforgiving circuit. If you go offline and you take liberties with the track limits, Sage Figure of Speech and Loveness have swapped places. Zotail is looking to go for it once again. Not much remaining as far as Zotail's ERS is concerned. If you look at the yellow bar at the bottom of your screen, an indication of just how much power, or not, Zotail has. And there we have it, folks. It's a 3-second time penalty for Duke, who is trying to catch up to Mex. And that basically means that it is going to be an all-out dogfight towards the end there. And it's not going to be a case of the time penalties being a factor when they both cross the line. Oh, it's exactly what I wanted to see, I'll tell you that. And now we're going to have a showcase, a grandstand finish between the top two drivers who have been evenly matched as far as their pace is concerned. Meanwhile, Zotail versus Billy Hendricks. Zotail is one of just 3 drivers who have yet to be penalized for track limit violations, the other being Sage Figure of Speech and Jonathan Lacka down on P15. Oh, how about that? Zotail now losing a bit of ground versus Sage Figure of Speech. It was much, much closer, but now teetering on the brink of losing that DRS. And how about that? Loveness, Sage Figure of Speech again, giving us a huge, huge battle as they make their way through turn 1. This is the left-hander of 2 into 3. And down into the slower turns, number 4 and 5, Sage Figure of Speech versus Loveness. Meanwhile, Zotail versus Billy Hendricks. And, of course, at the very sharp end of this grid, it's been Mex versus Duke. A series of really, really fierce battles between competitors that are evenly matched as far as pace is concerned. Look at the situation as far as penalties are concerned. 3-second time penalty shootout for each of our top 3 drivers. Sage Figure of Speech on the verge of earning a podium here if he just manages to stay in touch of Loveness. But the top 2 have really galloped way ahead by a factor of about 7.8 seconds relative to Loveness, who is currently running, of course, in P3. And as I say that, Loveness has galloped ahead of Sage Figure of Speech by a factor of about 1.5 seconds. So back we go to this everlasting tussle between Zotail and Billy Hendricks. H. Loney says, "Let's go, Mex." Being cheered on is Mex in the comment section. Here comes Zotail. part 16 of this never-ending battle. Zotal has used up all of their battery power. Now goes on the outside line versus Billy Hendricks, who we know through these corners does not leave anything to chance. Billy Hendricks trying to stay within touching distance. Oh, Zotal finally gets that time penalty, as it looked like he was ran out of road there and was nudged into the curb. He will not be happy with that. Will Zotal used up pretty much all of his battery power trying to stay in this fight versus Billy Hendricks. Well, Inati, great to see you in the comment section, a superstar veteran of BrakeAway Racing League seasons gone by. Zotal versus Billy Hendricks. It has been oh so close between these two. And now Billy has a golden opportunity, considering Zotal has also fallen foul here, to just eke out enough of a gap to give Zotal some headaches. Let's take a quick look at Billy Hendricks' ERS situation. It is definitely a lot more than it's fairly evenly matched as far as remaining ERS power is concerned between these two. So that's one to watch as the race leaders, Mex and Duke, once again swap places for the lead of this race. It is going to be oh so tight when all is said and done. I tell you what, Sage Figure of Speech will really be hoping and wishing that both he and Loveness could have stayed within touching distance of these top two, because Sage, being now one of just two drivers not to have been penalized, would have had a golden opportunity to find themselves in contention for really the very, very best of race results here. What I see is that Mex is really not giving Duke any opportunity to really get a stranglehold on this championship. On the days that Mex has not won races, he has really managed to make sure that despite Duke's gains, it is not quite close enough to snatch the top spot of this championship. But however, that gap at the top is inching closer and closer. Mex has 134 points. Duke has 125 points. As they now make their way past the ghost of Inquali. They now are lapping Inquali. Of course, Man Ray seemingly has already been lapped at this particular point of the race. Past Inquali they go. Mex fighting tooth and nail to make sure that Duke does not gallop too far ahead. Look at that. Mex's battery power down as he's just doing everything he possibly can to make sure that the McLaren does not get too far ahead. Those are your time penalties, folks. Billy Hendricks currently P5. Loveness is third. Sage Fig is fourth. Billy Hendricks is fifth. Zotal still fighting versus the Ferrari there. It's going to be another battle of wits as this is really going to heat up in these final laps. Just a couple of laps remaining of this race. Caboza, 3.3 seconds. Oh no, Mex, that's another time penalty. Oh, and that might just be that. Mex's time penalty basically means that all Duke needs to do now is just, stay within touching distance. Duke won't mind. He knows now that, it is pretty much done. Mex getting that 3-second time penalty additionally gives Duke all of the buffer that he would need. So now Mex really has to pray for a miracle, has to pray for Duke to make a massive, massive mistake in this remaining lap, and of course the final one to come. Man Ray with 12 seconds, 86er 9 seconds, Caboza 9, Thibaut Crocodile and Fence 6-second time penalties alongside Thiago Maestro. Nucho also 9, and now Mex of course gets a 3-second time penalty, or 6-second total time penalty. So 6 seconds will be added to Mex's finishing time. I'll tell you what, If only Sid's figure of speech and Loveness were much closer, because that would boot Mex off the podium. But it does not seem like that will be enough at this point. Duke's teammate is running down in P13, trying now to get past in quali for that P14 spot. What a terrible day for the McLaren of Thiago. Front row lockout it was, and now all the way down in P15. That is that. At the beginning of the final lap of this race, it was Duke in the lead. Now it is Mex once again. These two are 10 whole seconds ahead of the chasing pack as they now look to make this final trip around the Lusail International Circuit. Meanwhile, Zotal versus Billy Hendricks. The Haas driver has finally overtaken Billy, but we know how much of a fight the Ferrari superstar puts on in this first sector, particularly versus Zotal. It is going to be very, very close, and Zotal now needs to keep their nerve. He keeps lines it up in the middle of the track, trying to make the Ferrari go the long way around. Oh, Billy Hendricks, careful there. Into the back of the Haas goes Billy Hendricks, knocking Zotal, and the Haas driver will not be shaken easily. Nuccio gets slapped with a 10-second time penalty, while the likes of Mex and Duke are fighting it out at the front of the pack. We're going to watch these two very, very closely. Meanwhile, ahead of them, Sid's figure of speech is still close enough to Loveness to be able to claim that podium spot. But this is going to be very, very close in this final lap as we see how Billy will fare versus Zotal. We must give a word of appreciation, a word of applause to Duke, who will now come across the line as the winner of this race. Mex will come home in that P2 spot. Zotal versus Billy Hendricks is going to be one to watch towards the line as Duke snatches the fastest lap. Loveness seems to be claiming that podium spot, or does he? No. Sid's figure of speech, courtesy of that time penalty, in the final podium spot. And Zotal versus Billy Hendricks. It was close, but Zotal comes home in P5 and keeps Billy Hendricks at bay. Capoza comes across the line in P7, but will that be the case come the end of all things, considering where Mfundo will finish? It's going to be P8 for Mfundo. Debo Crocodile 9th, Marshy 10th, but will it stay that way? Debo and Fence run Linus there in P10 and 11. The 86er is not going to finish in the points. Sadly, neither will Fence as things currently stand. Donathon Laka was trying to give it an almighty go versus the 86er. You're trying to put on a show in the final couple of corners. Donathon Laka trying to make it a grandstand finish for Team Williams. P13 for the Williams superstar, and sadly out of the points. 11th at the end when you factor in all of those time penalties. Debo Crocodile voted driver of the day. Do you agree with that? Well, once the safety car, the virtual safety car, was in, it was pretty much a procession of a race. And, yeah, the field was pretty much spread out with a couple of pockets of battles taking place at different points of the pack. But there you have it. Once again, on the top step of the podium, for McLaren, it is Duke, whose teammate Thiago snatched the fastest lap of the race. Duke versus Mex. It is a championship fight of the ages. Both of these guys putting on a heck of a fight. Sid's figure of speech, beautifully done for them. They've been sensational in qualifying. There you have it, folks. 25 points for Duke. Another 18 points for Mex, who is trying to be the picture of consistency as far as the season is concerned. Sid's figure of speech doing sensationally well in qualifying. In the race, comes home for the podium place. Tato, a.k.a. Loveness, was scuppered by those time penalties. They finished in 12th. Zotal, a good day for them. 10 additional championship points for them. Billy Hendricks gets, of course, that 6th spot. Capoza 7th. And Fundo, Marshy, Debo Crocodile rounding off your top 10. Beautifully done. Duke lapping us halfway through the race, says a flabbergasted Man Ray in the comment section. Yeah. Not the best of days for the veteran Man Ray out here today. But what a race. Once again, fights all throughout to the grid. Not as close as in terms of an overall race as we saw in Vegas, perhaps because we didn't get the safety cars, which bunched everybody back up again. C-Clay, Rabico, Django, you guys need to come back. So says Man Ray. That would be quite the spectacle. But there you have it, folks. That was the Qatar race. The top three in the championship, finishing in those top three spots in the rake race. That being Duke, Mex, and Sage Figure of Speech. Duke says, I got an illegal overtake on Mex on the final lap, and had to give that back. Sporting gesture there from Duke, whose pace, once again, was quite telling when all was said and done. Well, there you have it, folks. That's been your showcase. Let's just touch base once again in the comment section. Thanks, everyone. Peace Waited, Kid K, Man Ray, Mandla, Tapiso, Don Rabico, Tiago, and, of course, Sir Lancelot. Great, of course, always having you in the comment section. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back with more BrakeAway Racing League action Wednesday, 8 p.m. right here on YouTube. That has been the 9th rendition of this All-Star race. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Congratulations to our podium finishers. And indeed, to the rest of the pack. Thank you, everybody, and good night.